For decades, Geddy Lee seemed almost superhuman. Night after night, he sang some of the highest and most demanding vocals in rock while playing incredibly complex bass lines. Fans came to believe that if anyone could defy time, it was Geddy. But when Rush prepared for the 2026 50-something tour, reality entered the conversation. The band rehearsed nearly 40 songs for the tour, carefully evaluating which classics they could still perform at the highest level. Geddy later explained that he and Alex Lifeson had to decide which songs they could still do justice to after more than a decade away from full-scale touring. No treble, most fans expected the usual challenges: stamina, endurance, and the sheer complexity of Rush's catalog. What they didn't expect was that one legendary song would force Geddy to make a rare adjustment, something almost unthinkable during Rush's classic years, a song so demanding that he eventually had to perform it in a different key. And the reason goes all the way back to one decision Rush made nearly 50 years earlier. The song in question was Circumstances, from Rush's 1978 album Hemispheres. For years, the track was known among fans as one of the toughest songs in Rush's catalog. While the music itself is challenging, the real obstacle was Geddy Lee's vocal part. The song sits unusually high in his range and leaves very little room to breathe. Looking back, Geddy admitted that Rush may have written the song a little too high in the first place. In interviews over the years, he has joked that younger musicians sometimes make choices without thinking about how difficult those choices will be decades later. That became especially important during preparations for the 50-something tour. After reviewing the material, Geddy decided that Circumstances would need to be transposed down to fit his current vocal range, while still preserving the song's energy and emotion. For many singers, that wouldn't be a big story. But for Rush fans, it was remarkable. This was a song Geddy had spent nearly half a century performing. If even he felt the need to adjust it, that showed just how demanding the original version really was. And surprisingly, the change didn't upset fans at all. In fact, many believed it proved something even more impressive about Geddy's approach to music. What made the transposition of Circumstances so interesting wasn't the fact that Geddy changed the key. It was the fact that he was willing to change it at all. Many veteran rock singers face a difficult choice as they get older. Some continue attempting notes that are no longer comfortable, often leading to strained performances. Others avoid challenging songs altogether. Geddy chose a different path. Rather than forcing the original key, he focused on delivering the song with strength, clarity, and conviction. For Rush fans, that decision reflected the same professionalism that had defined the band since the beginning. After all, Rush built its reputation on musicianship. Whether it was a complicated time signature, a demanding bass line, or a difficult vocal passage, the goal was always to serve the music, not the ego. By lowering the key of Circumstances, Geddy wasn't admitting defeat. He was making sure the song could still be performed the way audiences deserved to hear it. And there was another reason fans appreciated the move. It reminded them just how extraordinary the original recording really was. When Circumstances was first released in 1978, Geddy was singing notes that most rock vocalists wouldn't even attempt. Decades later, those same notes remained challenging enough to require special consideration. But here's the remarkable part. Even after adjusting the song, Geddy was still tackling a catalog that most musicians would consider impossible. And that brings us to the larger challenge facing Rush as they prepared for the 50-something tour. Preparing for the 50-something tour wasn't as simple as dusting off old songs and heading on stage. Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson faced a unique challenge. How do you celebrate nearly 5 decades of Rush history while making sure every song still feels powerful and authentic? According to Geddy, the process involved extensive rehearsals and honest conversations about what worked best in 2026. The goal wasn't to recreate the past note for note. It was to honor the music while adapting it to the realities of the present. That meant testing songs from every era of Rush's career. Some tracks immediately felt right, others required adjustments, and a few proved more demanding than expected. Circumstances became the most talked-about example because of its vocal range. But it wasn't the only song that forced careful evaluation. Every selection had to earn its place in the set list. For fans, this approach reflected something Rush had always done exceptionally well: refusing to take shortcuts. The band never wanted nostalgia alone to carry a performance. If a song was included, it had to meet the same high standards that Rush had set decades earlier. And there was another factor influencing every rehearsal, a presence that could never truly be replaced. Because no matter how exciting the tour preparations became, everyone involved knew they were working in the shadow of one irreplaceable figure. Every rehearsal for the 50-something tour carried an emotional weight that went far beyond musical challenges. The reason was simple: Neil Peart was no longer there. Since Neil's passing in 2020, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson have spoken openly about the difficulty of imagining Rush without the drummer and lyricist who helped define the band's identity for nearly 5 decades. Any return to the stage would inevitably be measured against the legacy he left behind. That reality made every decision matter. The goal was never to pretend nothing had changed. Instead, it was to celebrate the music honestly, while acknowledging the passage of time. That's one reason the decision to transpose Circumstances resonated with so many fans. Rather than chasing an impossible version of the past, Geddy embraced the present. In many ways, that attitude reflected Neil's own approach to excellence. Rush was always about growth, adaptation, and finding new ways to move forward. The band constantly evolved, whether through progressive rock epics, synthesizer-driven albums, or later returns to a heavier sound. The 50-something tour followed that same philosophy. It wasn't about proving that nothing had changed since 1978. It was about proving that the music still mattered. And when fans finally understood why Circumstances had been lowered in key, many saw it not as a compromise, but as a tribute to the professionalism that made Rush legendary. In the end, the story of Circumstances wasn't really about changing a key. It was about respecting the music. After nearly 50 years of performing some of the most demanding material in rock history, Geddy Lee faced a choice. He could try to force the song into its original range, or he could adapt it so that it still delivered the power, emotion, and precision that Rush fans expected. He chose adaptation. That decision perfectly captured what has made Rush special for so long. The band was never driven by nostalgia alone. It was driven by craftsmanship, honesty, and a relentless commitment to quality. The fact that Circumstances needed to be transposed also serves as a reminder of just how extraordinary the original recording was. Back in 1978, Geddy wrote and sang a vocal part so challenging that even he would eventually need to revisit it decades later. Yet, instead of diminishing the song, the adjustment highlighted its legacy. Fans didn't focus on what had changed. They focused on the fact that Geddy was still performing music that few singers could ever attempt while honoring the spirit of the original performance. In many ways, lowering the key wasn't a sign of limitation, it was a sign of wisdom. And that's why this story continues to resonate. Of all the technical details surrounding the 50-something tour, one transposed song may tell us more about Rush than anything else. True musicianship isn't about pretending time stands still. It's about evolving with it while keeping the music alive. And for Rush fans, that's exactly what Geddy Lee did with Circumstances.